Ever wondered why the Arab-Israeli conflict is so important to Malaysia? See, in 1965, it had been branded with a dangerous label, the Far East Israel. The cables from the Malaysian embassy in Cairo had begun to raise alarm. Indonesia, they warned, was operating in the Middle East in a big way, not quietly, not subtly. Indonesia was presenting itself as a true defender of the Arab struggle against Israel. And Malaysia, they said, was not. Worse still, Malaysia had been labeled the Far East Israel. It came as a shock because Malaysia had not seen this coming. To understand how this happened, we need to rewind. By the 1960s, in the Afro-Asian world, the Arab-Israeli conflict had become the test of legitimacy. You had to prove beyond doubt that you were on the Arab side. If you failed that test, you were treated as an enemy, even if you had nothing to do with Israel. 20th January 1963. On that day, Indonesia declared Konfrontasi against Malaysia. Jakarta objected to the formation of Malaysia, a federation between the Peninsular Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore. Indonesia framed Malaysia as a British neo-colonial project, a Western ploy to retain influence in Southeast Asia. Diplomatic ties were broken. The Philippines soon followed. For Malaysia, this was not just a dispute. It was a threat to its survival. Indonesia's arguments resonated. Across the Afro-Asian bloc, many newly independent countries believed Jakarta. Nearly 2 years after its formation, Malaysia was still struggling for full recognition. Malaysia responded the only way it could. Through diplomacy, high-level visits were launched. Tun Abdul Razak, the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore, they travelled across the Arab and African capitals, seeking Asian Afro support. But Malaysia did not yet realize that Indonesia was already one step ahead. In June 1965, Algeria was scheduled to host an Afro-Asian Conference. This was meant to be the second great gathering after Bandung of 1955. Indonesia's objective was clear: block Malaysia's participation. Algiers mattered. It was part of the Arab world, and Indonesia intended to use emotion to its advantage. With the Far East Israel label, Malaysia's entry could be derailed. And if Malaysia was blocked, the conference could even declare Malaysia illegitimate. Malaysia's survival depended on being inside that room. This was an uneven fight. Indonesia had thousands of diplomats. Malaysia had fewer than 100. And legitimacy depended on being in that room. And then Malaysia faced a hard truth. It could not fight this campaign from Kuala Lumpur. Presence mattered. But reports from the Malaysian embassy in Cairo warned that the Arab states were already pulling back. Doors were closing. And then something odd began to make sense in the foreign ministry. The desk officers had noted a series of inexplicable behavior by a particular Middle Eastern state since 1963. It was not explained, but now it all began to make sense. To understand that clue, we need to go back to 28 March 1963. That date takes us to Karachi, Pakistan. On 28 March 1963, Lebanon's embassy in Karachi, Pakistan, requested approval to accredit its ambassador to Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia gave the approval, but the ambassador never showed up. And then Lebanon refused to attend Malaysia Day celebrations on the 16th of September 1963. Later, they even blocked our Yang di-Pertuan Agung's proposed visit to Beirut. It seemed like incompetence then, until Pakistan suddenly broke ties completely. The pattern wasn't incompetence. It was coordinated quarantine. Indonesia, China, Pakistan had been quietly aligning to isolate Malaysia from the Arab states. This explained why Lebanon had been acting strangely, which meant that the other Arab states too had been influenced. Time was running out. The Afro-Asian Conference was now only months away. Malaysia needed to have a foothold in the Middle East. The most feasible place was Beirut. It was one of the most developed cities in the Middle East then. Lebanon was also different, democratic, open, a travel hub, financial, education, and business center. And critically, it was north of Israel. That made Beirut a valuable listening post on the Arab-Israeli conflict. Malaysia still faced limits. As the Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman explained in the parliament, the country did not have the money to set up a new embassy, neither did it have enough diplomats to run the ambassador in Cairo was concurrently accredited to Beirut. It's a common practice for small states under pressure to accredit one ambassador to multiple cities. Luckily, a series of fortunate incidents happened. By the time the ambassador arrived, things were changing. Indonesia was facing internal problems politically. Earlier, Indonesia had made some false steps, like pulling out of the United Nations, which had led to loss of support from some of the Afro-Asian countries. And finally, the conference that was supposed to take place in Algiers never happened. A coup ended it. And the room where Malaysia was to be condemned never opened. But Wisma Putra knew that policy couldn't be designed on luck alone. It had to treat the Arab-Israeli conflict as a priority in its foreign policy, which is why until today, this matter is important to Malaysia. Once Malaysia had reached that conclusion, now it had to make a trade-off. Its options on the ground were limited. Its policy would be to show full support for Palestine in a consistent, transparent manner in line with the UN and the Arab states' position. That is why Malaysia has consistently spoken in support of a two-state solution. That is also why Malaysia has consistently provided diplomatic support for the state of Palestine by even supporting the Embassy of Palestine in Kuala Lumpur. That is also why Malaysia has always contributed to the UN body known as UNRWA. The Konfrontasi is now long over. Malaysia's legitimacy is no longer at stake. But Malaysia is sensitive to the vulnerability of the Palestinians who are struggling to have a state of their own. This is why the Arab-Israeli conflict is very important to Malaysia. There could be religious sentiments today, but its origins started with the vulnerability of Malaysia itself. In the next video, I shall touch on an unknown chapter in the closure of the Konfrontasi. I'm Dr. Ilango Karpanan, former Malaysian ambassador, over 33 years of experience. I have served as ambassador in Beirut as well. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you very much.